Welcome to the other laboratory. Well, my laundry room has the best lighting in the house, kind of, sort of. My other computer desk here, my other computer desk has this cool little LED lamp, so I can get better detail spotting here. Oh, and by the way, TPU Frog says hi. Okay, so I printed these guys for drip trays for my flower pots, and I noticed right away. Now this is Polymaker Polylate ABS, natural, no coloring in it. That's important because the stuff is really strong when it's printed right, like much stronger than eSun ABS Plus, which I'll cover that some other time. But one thing I did notice is that when you print it fast, it tends to heat soak, obviously, as filaments do. And the problem is it can get rubbery as it passes around and drag its own filament with it, causing problems. See that hole there? This was printed at 260 Celsius at, 300-ish millimeters per second, and I say ish because I've allowed the printer to slow down on overhangs and stuff, and that does interfere a bit. But more or less, the internal, what you call the inner wall, whatever it is in Orca Slicer, is 300 millimeters per second set, and the outer is 150. So, yeah, averages out. But the outer is only one layer, so one line thickness, so most of it's printing at 300 millimeter per second. Anyway, the parts fan, closed cabinet, right? Closed lid, closed door. The parts fan I had running at 10%. And that caused... Why does my camera keep going out of focus? It's making me crazy. Lock. Okay, so, yeah. 10 millimeter per second part cooling fan. And I woke up to find this hole here in the print. This took about an hour 15 to print this. So, what I did... let me see here. Let's go through the inventory. No, that's the good one. I think, yeah, here we are. So what I did is I upped the cooling fan to 20% and locked it, as in it does not change. For layers below 30 second, 20%. Layers above 30 seconds, 20%. For layers below like 4 seconds or something, 20%. So what that does is it forces it to just do 20%. And you can see there, oh yeah, that's great. You can see right there, the scar is smaller. That was the point. Where this was a hole going straight through, this is almost gone. Almost kind of gone. You can still see it there. What I did is I just ran a drop of crazy glue over the hole, and I'm going to do the same to this one. I already buzzed it off with Dremel wire brush. I like using that for flaws in prints. Buffed it out, and then I'll put masking tape over the scar and then fill it with crazy glue from behind, and that should watertight it-ish. Now this one, of course, I got a scar anyway, even at 20%, so I went back and printed it again at 40% fan, again, for the whole entire print, except for the first 3 base layers. That's how we do. And no scar. It's nice and clean. So there's a lesson to be learned here. A lot of your curling problems, lifting problems, and separation problems come down to how the part cools as it's printed. People focus, as I did, way too much on bed adhesion. That's not your only problem. You can have excellent bed adhesion and still screw a print by overheating it during print. The faster you print, the hotter it gets. That's just a fact of life. So these new printers that print so fast are always going to be held back a bit by the fact that when you print super fast, you also print super hot. I'm getting a infrared camera for my phone, and I'll put up a demo of how that works and why that's a problem, but that's yet to come. Anyway, the point is you can mitigate all these problems by printing and reprinting a troublesome part like this and messing with the cooling fan and the extruder temperature. Now, you don't want to reduce your extruder temperature too much, or you'll get, like is so bad with eSun ABS Plus, you will get layer separation and your parts will be extremely weak. So you gotta keep a certain amount of heat soak in that part in order to get good layer bonding, but you don't want too much or it turns into rubber, and you can see as the nozzle goes around, it's like you can see it squish and squish and squish. That's how you know you're in over your head with heat soak. So you back the temp down one way or another. Either less heat on the extruder or less fan, but what you're really looking for is a balance of both, and that can be tricky. That's why with these three, I printed at 260C for every single one, because I wanted to limit to one factor. Very important. Something else you can see here, now I'm noticing as I'm talking, the surface on this one's very rough. I think that was also a sign of that. Yeah, you can feel it here more than see it. The one that had such battle damage. Is this the one? Oh, no. That is not the one. Oh, okay. Yeah, I got it totally wrong here. Okay, this one had like a really rough inner surface. It's like waves on the ocean. That was the first one, the one that actually printed a hole as it went around. It pulled the filament back and forth with it and created a hole. That's how rubbery it was. This one was less bad, still has the burn scar there, for lack of anything to call it, overheat scar. And the inner surface is rough, but not as bad as the really bad one, the first one. And then this final, at 40% fan, has much less of it. It's still there, but there are places in it that are actually nice and flat, more so than the 20%. So again, you see artifacts caused by overheating, which is interesting because I never thought of the inner surfaces that way before. Artifacts of overheating may include a rough finish. So this one had compounded, this is low close to the bed, compounded by heating from the bed, heating from the extruder, and a very low amount of cooling. In fact, first three layers have no cooling on this, so that's why that one suffered so. Then this one had 20% fan, but that doesn't come in until those first three layers are done, right? So it only gets its cooling after the damage is already done. It has to build on top of that. There are a couple layers on top of that, but it's not quite enough to make it go away. Then finally, you have the 40% fan one, which does still have it, but it's much more subtle. So all of this is about heat soak in the part, all of it. And it's very important. It's complicated to get your head around this sort of thing. You have to think about this. And in fact, Mr. TPU Frog here has the same problem right here, right under his left side. Right there, it got overheated and started rubberizing during print, getting pulled around by the nozzle, and that caused it to be really rough underneath. There are a lot of ways in print that you can, here, let's give them a pedestal. There are a lot of ways in print in the slicer where you can mitigate these problems, but none of them are perfect. And it occurs to me, like, these burn scars and these prints are on the seam area. They're specifically on the seam area. There's nothing wrong with the bad one except for the seam. So it occurs to me, like, look at that. That's where the seam was. And again, on this one, same thing. And again, on this one, invisible because I finally got it below the threshold of overheating for the seam area, causing a problem where the entire part has to be cooler to make up for one problem in one tiny region. It occurs to me that the slicer could do with something a little bit better, like a spot cooling for the seam area would have allowed me to heat soak the entire thing and make incredibly strong layer bonding for the plastic being used, well mitigating the problem with overheating in that one tiny spot. I'm not sure if that's workable. I'm not sure how workable, but it seems to me that that's something that should be looked at in slicers. Dwell time on one little spot can cause heat soaking, especially at very high speeds. But yeah, so there we are, and there it is. And what else is there to say? Hope you got something out of that. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.